We're going to go to our last story, ladies and gentlemen, and that is this debate with Abby Martin on Piers Morgan. Now, this time the debate wasn't so much between Abby Martin and Piers Morgan, but it was more so against the gentleman that's on here that Abby actually called a spy, Masab Hassan Youssef. So this gets a little crazy. Let's go ahead and dive in. And I'll just go ahead and tell you to prepare yourself because it does get pretty heated. Not to mention, he also made some pretty, I thought, personal, insulting comments towards Abby that had nothing to do with the conflict at hand. Let's dive in.
So at this point, Israel needs to be stopped before they continue this horrific onslaught, Piers.
Mossab, I'll get you to respond to what Abby just said, but just your response to that interview with an Israeli government spokesman, because I got to say, I found that pretty stunning that he would be so certain how many Hamas terrorists the IDF have killed, but admit he had no idea how many civilians have been killed, given that it's the deaths of the civilians that is getting Israel so much unpopular reaction around the world.
Because we cannot send Israelis to Rafah and to dangerous zones to collect statistics and count the numbers. It's a very dangerous zone. Israel is looking from the outside. And also, who said that Israel is only responsible for the killing of Gazans? Mostly Hamas responsible. First of all, for taking human shields. Second, they're booby traps. How could you differentiate the...
Let me pause here for a second. So this is a way that you can push back against that narrative that is being pushed about human shields. If that is the case, then how come they haven't killed off Hamas? They've killed over 30,000. Again, I would estimate it's at least 50,000 people by now. If you count all the people, if they pull everyone for that's under the rubble, but over 30,000 people right now on record. And if the people were being used as human shields, why haven't they killed off Hamas? I don't know why more people don't respond that way to that statement. Because if you're in front of me and I'm using you as a shield, I'm going through all of these buildings and hospitals and we've blown up all of these places, but they still haven't killed Hamas. Okay.
Death that it was caused by an airstrike or by a Hamas death trap. How do we know the difference?
Well, yeah, but
the point I would make, people die. Yeah, listen to me. All this moral, Piers. No, listen to me. All this dilemma. You know, you're going with your whatever morality. This is war. In war, people die. You need to wake up to this reality. Accept it. Stop this denial.
So this guy is basically a traitor from what I understand. Like he's actually speaking against his own people. You know, they always find that one person, right? Like every group finds that one person that's going to betray their own people. And supposedly that's where he comes from. Abby later on calls him out for this, which he kind of walked himself into that dungeon. Because he kind of set that one up for himself. But when he says that this is war, if you're looking at the statistics, which I think Piers is going to get to in just a second, when you look at the stats, you can't compare it to other conflicts. That is the thing. So this guy is just basically saying to you, he doesn't care about those people that are. How can you be so heartless and soulless as a person? You know? Really crazy.
We are in the face of savages who hijacked an entire society. This is a very difficult war. No other army can do the job, and I'm not willing to risk thousands of lives of foot soldiers to deal with this type of savages who hijacked the entire society.
Pause. So here we go again with demonizing the Palestinian people. How many times have you heard the people that are obviously speaking out against the Palestinian people refer to them as animals or savages? These are the same things that are said about Black people in this country. Pay attention to that. Again, he's saying that they hijacked an entire society. Last time I checked, Israel is still in power and in control. Last time I checked, Israel still controls the land, the air, the water, and the sea. Last time I checked, Israel's still occupying Gaza. So how did they actually take over an entire society? They did not. These are not just exaggerations. These are lies. Ay, ay, ay.
100,000 people could have died. Israel is doing everything they could. Don't reduce it to the point. Do you have statistics? Who cares?
Well, actually,
Egypt,
no, I think they're missing my point.
Authority,
Yeah, Mossad.
Jordan,
all right.
The Arab world don't want Hamas at whatever cost.
Mossad.
Whatever it costs, we want to remove Hamas from power.
Okay, I understand that. That's a different question. My point is why...
Do you?
Well, why does... My question is this for you. Why is it that, if, as you say, Israel has no way of working out who's being killed here, and I know all about war... My brother served in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. My brother-in-law served in wars. My grandfather served in wars. My uncle served in wars. I don't need a lecture about what warfare is, but I do find it surprising that Israel's official spokesman, months and months into this war, is able to tell me immediately how many Hamas terrorists have been killed by Israeli forces, but admits he hasn't got a clue how many civilians have been killed. And I'm sorry, I think most viewers will find that stunning. You say Israel's no way of checking, but they seem to have a way of checking how many Hamas they're killing, Mossad.
Listen, it's Israel's responsibility to know the death of their own citizens. This is their responsibility. I think your question was absurd. This is why you put him on the spot. He was not prepared for it.
I didn't put him on the spot.
But this is not politician. The reality on the ground. The reality on the ground, Hamas must go. The only side want Hamas to stay is the Iranian Ayatollah, and for some stupid reason, Karen in America wants Hamas to stay. But
do you guys hear what he just said? So he said that Karen in America wants Hamas to stay. He doesn't even know the definition of a Karen. A Karen does not want Hamas to stay. You know, he doesn't even know what that really means. So he's just saying just random things now. Also, if you're not afraid of what the data is going to reveal, then why are you so opposed to looking at the data? He said it doesn't matter. Who cares? Right. You're just supposed to believe the Israeli government's word. You're not supposed to actually look at data. Where I come from, numbers mean something. Where I come from, data means something. So what is he afraid of?
The Arab world, let me tell you something. Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the majority of the Arab world. We are Arabs. I am Arab. We are not Palestinians. We don't want Hamas. We don't want Islam. We want Islamists out of power. Okay. It's as simple as that. All right. They have been killing Jewish and Arab children. Right. This is not your game. This is not her game. It's not about statistics. It's not a game. It's about doing the correct thing of removing Hamas from power.
Mossad,
end of the story.
Let me interrupt, because you quoted Saudi Arabia in your rant there. So let me read you a statement from the Saudi Foreign Ministry. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs expresses the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's warning of the dangers of the Israeli occupation forces targeting the city of Rafah as part of its systematic bloody campaign to storm all areas of Gaza Strip and displace its residents towards the unknown in light of a lack of safe zones after the massive destruction caused by the Israeli war machine. The ministry affirms the kingdom's categorical rejection of the occupation forces' continued blatant violations of international resolutions, calling for the cessation of these massacres and their violation of international law and international humanitarian law without deterrence, which exacerbates the humanitarian crisis and limits international peace efforts. The ministry renewed the kingdom's demand for the international community to intervene immediately to stop the genocide carried out by occupation forces against defenseless civilians in the occupied Palestinian territories. So when you say all Arabs agree with you, Mossad, actually they don't. That is the Saudi Foreign Ministry saying they want it to stop right now.
But again, he doesn't like facts and data and analysis and graphs or numbers. Those things don't matter to him.
As we speak, the intelligence services of the Arab world, all of them in a joint operation room with Israel to rid of Hamas. I don't care about some politician trying to make a political statement. It's false. The reality on the ground, we don't want Hamas. We don't want Islamists. We don't want this anarchy, this revolution without a moral compass. We don't want to globalize it. We don't want to bring it to the United States. The game is over. Hamas is out and their death warranty has been issued.
Apparently, Hamas is not out because Israel has not captured them. You know, through all the bombing and strikes and ground invasions, they have not captured them. They also turned down the peace agreement that Hamas actually accepted so that Israel could get the hostages returned back to them. They didn't want that because, like I told you from day one, it was never about getting the hostages back. It was about them pushing the Palestinian people off that land, them capturing that land and the resources, and just going from there. That's what this is really about. If you cared so much about those hostages, you would have accepted some type of a peace, even if it's a temporary pause or whatever. You would have accepted that just to get the hostages back alone. But you don't care about those hostages. And I'm curious to know how many of those hostages have already died, not because they were attacked by Hamas, but because of starvation. You know, when Israel said we're not letting the, no food, and they tried to block off the humanitarian aid from getting into the people, they were blocking off humanitarian aid from getting to the hostages as well, not just the Palestinian people.
It's a finished job. All right, and we are going into Rafah and we are going to eliminate every last one of them.
Let me bring in Abby. Abby, you've been listening to this. I mean, fundamentally, I understand why Israel and Israelis want to eliminate Hamas completely, because this is a terror group who are wedded to the eradication of Israel and everybody in it. In fact, they have reiterated publicly through their official spokesman a desire to commit as many October the 7th as they can. So I completely understand why Israel wants to get rid of these terrorists. The question is, how do they do that without killing many, many more civilians? And as we saw from the Saudi statement, there are many Arab countries now in the region increasingly concerned that if there is a full attack on Rafah, which has 1.5 million people, a lot of civilians are going to die.
Right, and to your point before, I think the death toll is actually vastly undercounted, considering how we have not even began to excavate the bodies under the rubble. So I would say that the death toll is a vast undercount. As far as Mossab's point about Hamas, I think that Mossab is the Palestinian who hates Palestinians. He's developed a lucrative career being able to lie about basic facts about this conflict. And so when he says Palestinians or Hamas, what he really means is all Arabs and all Muslims. In fact, I've seen that plain as day in his social media and talks. He thinks that all Muslims are terrorists. And so, I mean, this is credited to the point that he is actually credited to jailing what is called the Mandela, the Palestinian Mandela. Marwan Barghouti. This is a guy who he put in prison 20 years ago, who was marching side by side with Israeli peace activists denouncing Hamas killing civilians. So again, I mean, when we're looking at someone who's worked for Israeli intelligence, who spouts the same rhetoric as Israelis, who say Hamas, but what they really mean is all Palestinians, I mean, it's really hard to debate someone on the fundamental reality and the principles of, the facts of this conflict. Now, to your point, Piers, about what should they do about Hamas, I reject the premise of Israel's genocide. I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, Hamas is a terrorist organization and they need to be eradicated. Of course, that's not true. And I think that we can both agree.
What do you mean that's not
it's
true?
An impossible task. It's not true that something needs to be done about Hamas. I don't agree with that framework and the parameters of that debate.
Why?
Because Israel's been committing ethnic cleansing and genocidal policies against the Palestinians for 70
but Hamas
plus years.
Let me pause for a second. And again, I just want to remind everyone, Gaza does not have a military. You have to remember that. Without the occupation of the Palestinian people, without the expulsion of the Palestinian people from their homes in the West Bank, you don't get a Hamas. Remember, Israel was removing people from their homes, Palestinians from their homes in the West Bank, before Hamas even became a thing. So this is what we always have to remember, folks. Because I see a lot of people out there saying, oh, well, they implemented those things because of Hamas. Nah, bruh. You were already occupying people. You were already, expelling people from their homes before Hamas even existed. That's the dirty little secret. I guess not so much a secret anymore, but that was the dirty little secret that the Israeli government didn't want people to know.
And as I reiterated before, but Abby, hang on. Hamas literally has a stated charter of the elimination of Israel. That is the purest personification of a publicly stated policy of genocide that's not I can imagine.
That's not true. Their revised charter says that they actually recognize the existence of the Israeli state among 1967 borders. That's the revised charter, and they actually make a political differentiation between Zionism and Judaism.
But Piers Morgan has been told this on this show multiple times, and he continues to repeat that same lie.
That's when the actual charter of Hamas. So you keep pointing to a random spokesperson. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not random. He's the official spokesman for Hamas. And he said literally 2 weeks after October the 7th, we are going to do this again and again and again. That is an existential genocidal threat to the existence of everyone in Israel. Clearly.
When a spokesman of an organization says something, that doesn't always represent the views of everyone that's a part of that organization. And I'm pretty sure any of you that have been a part of an organization or even a company that has spoken, they had a spokesperson and that person actually issued a statement. That doesn't mean that everyone agreed with it or everyone accepted it or approved it. So, but Piers Morgan knows this. He's well aware of that. This is just like, remember when we were talking about before about the mandates, when the Green Party released that statement about the mandates in reference to like the jab? Remember, that was like, what, 2 or 3 people? And they were basically issuing their statement, but the majority of the members did not agree with that. That was something that they went forward with on their own. And that was not the consensus of the party. So this is what I was saying about a spokesperson doesn't necessarily reflect the beliefs of the entire group.
Said publicly on camera. I mean, he's brazen about it.
Look, I think that when you're comparing one guy and his statement to literally dozens of genocidal statements. Okay, but look at the official spokespeople of Israel, Piers, and look at the actual genocide they're committing. You cannot compare the two. It's a complete false equivalency. One guy is saying one thing, the other dozens of Israeli ministers and cabinet officials and public media personas on TV are saying one thing and actually doing it on the ground.
You would allow Hamas to stay in power?
On the ground. It's not up to me, Piers. Hamas is representative of a large sector.
You've been expressing many opinions.
But here's the thing.
What's your opinion?
Marwan Barghouti is the most popular unifying figure in Palestinian society. He would resoundingly win in an election against Hamas. So what this is about, this isn't about Hamas. This is about eliminating every faction of Palestinian resistance, peaceful or not. It is not about Hamas.
It's all about what Hamas did on October the 7th.
But Piers, I think we both know it's not. Because what is the military occupation founded upon? When did Hamas come into power? We know that this isn't just about Hamas. What was Israel doing in the West Bank the year prior to October 7th? They killed 500 Palestinians, 80 children. Yep. This is ethnic cleansing. This is a military occupation. As long as you have these policies in place, you will never get to the root of the violence, Piers.
All right.
But Piers knows that. You guys, let's go to another part of this where Mossad dude goes even crazier in this segment. Piers knows that. Again, this is what Piers Morgan is paid to do. You know, he's paid to, he's supposed to be pro-Israel. He is not supposed to even take any part of the side of the Palestinian people. And if it hadn't been for all the protests that happened, I don't even think he would be having some of these people on to have this discussion. Listen to this part, though. This is where dude goes crazy.
Well, this is Abi's desperate attempt to discredit me. I am a man of the field. I fought against Hamas as part of legitimate intelligence organization, against savage group that were targeting civilians in suicide bombing attacks, waves of suicide bombing attacks that they killed people indiscriminately. So Abi today want me for some reason to apologize for saving human life because my truth challenges her convenient truth. Abby does not have the authority. She's just a self-appointed low-grade journalist. How can you be a journalist and you call this a genocide, ethnic cleansing? And she just keep repeating ethnic cleansing, genocide, colonialism, etc. None of it is real, including Palestine. It's only in your head. None of it is existential. Palestine was never born.
Pause. We'll come back. This guy is just repeating lie after lie. So we do have to just go ahead and show you this part right here. He says Palestine was never born, right? So look. This is the disappearing Palestine map, right? Look at this. 1946, 1947 UN plan. Right. So this is where there starts to become the creation of Israel. 1949 to 1967, you can see less and less of Palestine, right? Starts to disappear. And then you go to 2012 and you see here's Gaza here and you have the West Bank. So, right. But according to him, there was never no such thing. OK. All right. If you go here real quick.
After World War I, the League of Nations placed Palestine, formerly part of the Ottoman Empire, under a British administration that supported the creation of a Jewish national home there.
Did you hear what they said right from the beginning? Palestine. They placed Palestine. Okay? Read the letter that is written to dear Lord Rothschild. His Majesty government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. But according to Crazy Eyes over there was never no such thing. So you see how just lie after lie after lie after lie. People, guys, that video is on the United Nations website. Right there on the UN website. So there's that. Let's go back to Crazy Eyes and let him finish this discussion. This is crazy. I've just never seen someone just lie so much.
How can you free it? It was never there. It's just a colonial entity. And some people choose to make it into a national identity. And this parrot has been just repeating Hamas propaganda. Marwan Barghouti that she's talking about him, she never met him. I knew Marwan before he got to power. He is a criminal. He killed 5 people. He has blood on his hands. He cheated on his wife. He has a secret son that he never revealed it to the public. Of course, I can criticize him, and I can criticize all the criminals that I know personally. She's been there only for a visit, and maybe she had some falafel sandwich, you know, and she really was blown away of the Palestinian experience. There is no such a thing as Palestine. It's about time to retire, find a different job. You're not a journalist. You don't qualify even to be a mother.
You guys see what just happened there? So, do you see how low he just went? He's the one that looks unhinged. He's the one that looks problematic. He's the one with the issue. Doesn't want to see data, doesn't want numbers. This guy is basically, he's like a paid actor. That's what this is. But apparently also a spy.
Wow. Abby.
Masab, you know, it's usually a public figure. If they were caught lying about half the things that they said, they would be completely discredited and never allowed airtime. You are spewing such ahistorical anti-Arab bigotry that not even the fringe of Israeli society would agree with you. I mean, not even Israeli historians agree.
I'm not anti-Arab. I am Arab. I am Arab. This is my ethnicity. Islam is just
anti-Muslim bigotry.
I am not a Muslim.
Mazhab.
We are Arabs.
Mazhab. Okay. Then anti-Muslim bigotry, which is frankly appalling considering that there's a billion people on the planet who would be characterized as you as, you know, extremists who need to be used force against, according to you. But Masab, not even Israeli historians would agree with the fact that you claim that there's no military occupation in the West Bank, that there's no apartheid state. Israelis at least admit, yes, those things exist, but here's why they're necessary and justified. they don't even agree with you. You're so fringe that I don't even know where you're coming from. I mean, so again, if we can't even agree with the basic facts of the conflict and the reality in front of our eyes, I don't know how we can really even discuss this.
What's that?
Yeah, because you don't qualify.
Well, I think the belittling her credentials. Listen, well, everyone's entitled to an opinion.
Piers, best case scenario, if there is an occupation, it's between Israel and Jordan, or it's between Israel and Egypt, because it was not an occupation of a country called Palestine. There was never Palestine in history. This is.
You hear this, guys? What did I just show you? Didn't I just show you that Palestine existed in history? Didn't you just see the letter that was written to Lord Rothschild that the land will be Palestine? Like, right? Didn't you just see all this stuff with the map? So you see how he just continuing to lie?
It's not an absurd statement. It's reality. Palestine never exists. That was not a country. It was not a nation. It's not an ethnic group. We are Arabs. We are the Arabs of Judea and Samaria. And when I was born, like millions of Palestinians, we had Jordanian birth certificate.
Didn't he just say there's no such thing as Palestinians? But then he goes on to say, when I was born, like many Palestinians. So he acknowledges that they are Palestinians. You know, he just showed himself right.
The people of Gaza were Egyptian with Egyptian birth certificate. There was no Palestine. Yasser Arafat created this entity and everybody believed him. And this lie must die. This is why I don't like what Abby and her likes doing by trying to delegitimize Israel. She's trying to discredit me. Who gave you the authority? How dare you?
You are
I'm
a spy. You're a spy for Israeli
conflict.
Intelligence,
You
Massab.
It is not funny. It's not funny. Your tale,
It's
your
not
false
funny at
narrative
all.
need to
It's-
stop because
it's
you
not
are
funny at all,
creating chaos.
Massab.
Listen, Abby, you are bringing
Massab, you're
chaos to the
very-
United States and you will be held accountable. You are just a criminal like them.
Sure. Okay.
Was that a threat? You guys know what's on video is on video. Did he just threaten her? Because that's what it kind of seemed like.
Massab, you can't be taken seriously and you're not legitimate because you are literally, you have worked for Israeli intelligence to out your own people. But listen,
Sooner
but
or
Massab,
later
you can't discredit my reality as well. You can't discredit my reality as well. I was in the West Bank. I had assault rifles pointed at my head from a 17-year-old American from Palo Alto. That's an occupation.
You are in my domain right now.
That's a military occupation.
Okay, you are in my domain. When you come to my domain, you have to pay respect. You have to respect all the effort that I put to save human lives, and you cannot reduce that into some propaganda because
why on earth would I respect you for putting the leader of Fatah, Massab? You put the most unifying, popular Palestinian figure. You are credited to putting him in prison. This is someone who would win an election against Hamas. He is a peace activist. He was fighting for a two-state solution. This isn't about Hamas, and you know it. This is about you shutting down, tamping down on all factions of Palestinian society. And let's be clear, what is Palestine supposed to do? What are Palestinians supposed to do when in 2018, thousands of Palestinians in Gaza marched peacefully to this fortified perimeter fence that Israeli snipers have authorized themselves to shoot to kill? And that's exactly what they did. They massacred over 200 peaceful demonstrators, medics, press, journalists, clearly marked press, disabled people in wheelchairs, and children. These are all violations of international law in the Geneva Convention. Israeli snipers perched up behind sand dunes picked people off one by one in a methodical slaughter over the course of several months. That's when Palestinians tried to peacefully protest. So I think the question should be, what should Palestinians do? Because they're not even allowed to advocate for their legal rights. They're not even allowed to raise up a Palestinian flag. I visited a place called Sebastia in the occupied West Bank, and Palestinians were shocked and in the hospital for simply erecting a Palestinian flag on a hilltop several days prior. This is the brutal reality of military occupation in the West Bank, Massab. I mean, I want the violence to end. I empathize with the victims of both sides of this. And that's why I want to get to the root of the conflict. Yes, I don't go out there and say Jews can't be trusted like you say about Muslims. I empathize with all civilian life. I believe and cherish the sanctity of human life. And that's why I want to get to the root of why violence occurs, Massab.
So
let me ask Massab.
let me just pause here for just a second. So, you know, Abby has way more integrity than this guy can ever have, like in his whole body. She probably has that amount of integrity in like her pinky. Basically, long story short, this dude was a snitch. Long story short, a spy against his own people. He turned on his own people. This guy can't be trusted. His words can't be believed. He's lied multiple times throughout this conversation. I think we have a couple more minutes to go here left.
Question. Yeah. Do you agree with the principle that Palestinians should be entitled to exactly the same human rights as Israelis?
Listen, the suffering of the Arabians, again, stop calling them Palestinians. They are not Palestinians.
See? Do you see how he exposes himself? Stop calling them Palestinians. They're not Palestinians. But he himself, just a couple of minutes ago, referred to them as Palestinians. This is him trying to erase the culture, the history of the people. When he tells you not to call them Palestinians, that is to erase their existence. Get that, guys? That's to erase the existence. When he talks about this, he's trying to make it pretend like the culture does not exist. This is what he wants to get through to people's heads. And if you say that to just enough people and you say it enough, if people don't look up the information for themselves, they'll believe that to be true. Now, he wants you to believe this stuff never existed. There's a Palestinian flag. There were Palestinian passports. But this guy is lying, saying there was never such a thing. It never existed. That is to discredit the Palestinian people and also to erase their existence, if not physically, erase it from your mind. So mentally and physically. This is why they slaughtered all the journalists. This is why over 100 journalists have been killed. This is why they banned Al Jazeera offices in Jerusalem and they shut those down because too much information about what Israel was doing was getting out and they had a problem with it. This is why the ADL went after TikTok. They wanted to silence the source of information because they don't want people to know the truth. This guy is a liar and he's paid to be a liar. This is what they do. Think it can't happen? There were infiltrators in the Black Panthers, boo. There were infiltrators in the Black Panthers that were paid by the FBI to infiltrate and turn on their own people. It happens to other groups as well. And it's obvious who this guy is. I could only take so much of him. I'm sorry. It was tough. I've watched that twice. It was tough. Yikes. But I think that Abby handled herself very well and she was very composed and he was the one who came out looking crazy. Yes, that's right, Leah. That's how they got Fred Hampton. Absolutely. There you go. Mm-hmm.